All right, Elle Duncan, you covered women's basketball on the college level, on the professional level, and for many years, you guys said you wanted some more attention. Well, how you like it now? How you like it? Are you happy? Are you glad we showed up? Have you enjoyed the ride this year? We're in the WNBA finals that have the bad timing of being right like during baseball playoffs and the NFL season, right? It's a tough go for them in that way, but we're here.
Yeah, this is like finally having like a home and a backyard big enough to entertain more people. And then the new people that show up to the party show up with pitchforks, and you're like, "Ooh, never mind. This was bad. I should have curated this list a little better." Yeah, I have said repeatedly that this is the worst timeline right now. Because if you even talk about basketball in a critical way, and I can understand, like if you've got the one side where like if you talk critically about a basketball player, you get sort of don't pile on, like these women are already facing so much hate and vitriol, don't like add to that by talking critically about their basketball, which is kind of like our job. And then of course conversely, the second that you show love to anybody not named Caitlin Clark, you are part of, some constituency that's trying to keep her contributions at a minimum, and you're racist, and we get a lot of that. It's no wonder that the W coverage is all Black women, because you're all in it together to try to keep her down. It's just you're kind of damned if you do and you're damned if you don't at this point in the W, which has been really frustrating because the competition's never been better, the storylines have never been more plentiful. I am a firm believer, though, Bo, that like the bad faith characters that were sort of like, I'm only here for Caitlyn, I'm only here. So much of that nasty rhetoric has toned down since the fever got bounced from the postseason. And I don't think it's because necessarily people aren't watching. Like we're still setting huge ratings increases, record ratings, despite it not being any fever games involved. Obviously, her games saw exponentially more growth and more viewership, but we're still over indexing anything that we had done in previous years. So I've seen a lot of that calm down, and it's kind of become what it could be, which is, the discourse being around basketball and reminding people about the great legacy of the Lynx or some of these amazing stories. But yeah, it is a bit of a be careful what you wish for, right? Like you want for the W to sort of be a part of the hot take economy, because that means that people are talking about it. There's bad takes in every sport, right? And so like when you're talking about equality, I suppose that's what it means, right? Like if you want for the platform to grow. But to me, the frustrating part has been, instead of hot takes that are like, Brianna Stewart's never going to win another championship, or, Nafisa Collier's better than Maya Moore. Like instead of those kinds of hot takes, the hot takes solely and explicitly surround all of these Black women versus Caitlin Clark. And like that's what's frustrating to me, is that the people that have the platforms think that they're doing the W a service simply by just talking about it, as opposed to understanding that if you don't have the bandwidth to talk about it, please stop globbing onto that one narrative, which is they need to show her more adoration, adulation, and love. And I understand that I'm coming from a place of being a Black woman who has my whole life had other people try to validate any successes that I've had. And like that is probably why it pisses me off more than anything, because I understand that Black women are always overlooked, and no matter what they end up doing, they had to work twice as hard for half as less. And then to have someone come in who has been amazing for the game, for the sport, of her own volition, worked really hard in Caitlin Clark, but to have this group of people come in and immediately invalidate the contributions of all of these women before her simply because they don't know, that's what's been frustrating. So yes, people are going to talk about it more, but oh my God, please just educate yourself so that you can have bad takes that involve basketball and not bad takes that send racism and misogyny into the timelines of these women. It's unfair.
So the timeline part that you mentioned, I think, is a very important thing because I think everybody, this is across the board, it doesn't really seem to me, doesn't matter what side of whatever argument you're on as it relates to this, boy, everybody's way too online, man. And like
Yeah.
when I see the discussions that people are having, it reeks of you guys are way too online. But you know where I see these discussions? When I'm online, right? So like I don't even know if I'm in a position to be judgmental of it in that way, but it still feels like everybody involved in this is way too online. And I think that people, when you talk about people being too online, I think they think about the things they consume really skewing heavily in one direction, kind of more of a left direction, if we'll say this. No, them crazy white folks online the same exact ways, right? So like the people that you see and saying these wild things in defense of Caitlin Clark, assuming they're actually people, because I can't tell who is and is not a person when it comes to an online discussion. But it feels like a lot of these women who are younger women who grew up native to these spaces are being flooded with it in large part because they're so online, because that's what life is for people at this point. And so it's easy. And a lot of times I look at it like, okay, this harassment that you're describing could easily be turned off by turning off the phone. But that's where life is for people at this point. It's not that simple to just tell them to turn it off, because that's where they do things. But at the same time, it is not an unreasonable solution that a lot of people can come up with on this one. But I have been shocked by how toxic it has been to see in public and in private the ways that people have talked about this. And then the whole Christine Brennan thing got to be so weird and over the top, because Caitlin Clark is the person a lot of people have been waiting their whole lives for. They didn't even know it, but apparently they've been waiting their entire whole lives for. And she seems to be handling it way better than anybody else involved in this whole thing has handled it. But I look at it and I wonder who's having fun this year. Like, who is observing this and who has been around the league and is actually enjoying what should have been something that should have been great for all parties. Well, not all parties, because she's a competitor, right? They're competing against each other. But in a macro sense, I feel like it should have been better for everybody.
She's not enjoying it either. And the thing is that has been so frustrating. I said this on my show like months ago. I'm like, you all think that you are making Caitlin Clark some like avatar for you to like, be nasty and to attack women. Caitlin Clark admires these women that you're attacking. She grew up admiring them and wanting to be like them. She was inspired by them. For you to then turn it and make them the villains and her the victim in this has been asinine. And she, she said it even at her post-game press conference when the season was over, after they got bounced out of the postseason. She said that as well. Like, I know this league. I knew how physical it was because I'm a fan of this league. I'm a fan of these women. She grew up idolizing Maya Moore. Like, she grew up watching this league. She knew more about the league than you did. You came in and didn't understand any of those things. You didn't know that it was physical. You didn't know that women compete. That yes, there are enforcers that are women in the same way that there are enforcers that are men, and that there are petty women just like there are petty men. Like this is a thing. This is the dynamic of sports in general, and that there is a rookie culture where the veterans want to put you in your place. The thing for me, Bo, that because I always say this as it pertains to myself, like it is impossible for me at my big old age of 41 to be bullied online, because all I have to do is put my phone down, right? Like, it's hard when you're in high school, you're in middle school, you go face these people who are harassing you online. That is not the case when you're a grown up. But what I'll say is, I'm new in the W too. I've been doing college basketball for 4 years, but this is my first year in the W. And everybody talks about what social media looked like previously in the W, and it was a community. And it was a lot like NBA Twitter, which is, to me, one of the most culturally relevant spaces in social media, right? Like, NBA Twitter is fun. And imagine if next year Cooper Flagg comes in to the NBA and all of a sudden NBA Twitter is permeated with all these big black goons are trying to attack some sweet, innocent white kid, and how frustrating that would be for the players too. The women of the W react and engage on social media because that's how they reach out to their fans, because that's how they build their brands. That's how they build brand recognition, is by engagement, is by being online and being a presence online. But if you tweet an innocuous picture of you goofing around at, practice or at shoot around, and it becomes 300 messages of, you're a coon and, you need to worship the ground Caitlin walked on, of course you're going to be frustrated. And it's not fair, because they have existed in this world for a long time that obviously, like social media, can have vitriol and can have some nonsense and some chicanery, but it's become all of that now, to the point where they have completely disengaged. And we're watching women, get rid of their social medias because they just can't take it anymore. And that is the frustrating part, is that they have ruined every safe space. And then you've got people like Christine Brennan, people who I think were former proud journalists who have just devolved into fangirls. And she can sort of say whatever she wants about, like, well, I'm writing a book on Caitlyn and like I'm asking the tough questions and this and that. But to watch the fangirling, like, we love sports. I definitely have athletes that I'm fans of, but like for that to impact how I approach my comments on a game or how I dissect a game or my analysis of a game is just weird to me. And we're watching it happen with all of these journos who aren't journalists anymore. They're fangirls. They're like, it's like weird to me. It's just bizarre. And I know that Caitlyn is a once in a generation type of talent because I've been watching her for years since she's been in college. I didn't just get introduced to Caitlyn Clark like some of these fans did. And to think that she is some innocent, poor innocent girl getting picked on. She's a tough woman. Okay, she can dish it too. She mixed it up with DeWanna Bonner. She's no pussycat. She got better and better and better and became the best scorer that we've ever seen in college because people tested her. She was tested. She wasn't targeted. Holly Rowe dropped a bar on my show saying that. And it's just, in general, been incredibly frustrating. So it's not so easy for the people that say things like, well, if you don't like what they're saying on social media, just get off social media. That was a safe space for them for many, many years. And it very quickly did not become that way.
I will say, I do think they'll all be much happier with their lives being off the social media. I think I'd be happier with my life being off the social media. It will be interesting to check if, like, in the end, they're like, you know what? I kind of am better off not kicking it like that. But I think, though, that ties to something that's important, though, is that I think it's very easy to think about because women are celebrities. And so, that comes with the territory stuff that people who, by the way, have never been on said territory typically offer. But I understand the argument, except the difference here is they don't make no money. Right. So if we were talking about somebody that's making $5-10 million a year and this is part of the trade, then I think we view this a little bit differently. You out here doing this for 75 G's. No. Right. I see it kind of in that way where it's like, okay, yeah, this. I should not have to retreat from this portion of my life for things that really only have but like so much to do with me. Right. The Christine Brennan thing, I thought that statement that the WNBPA released, I did not think that was good. Like the tone of it, the whole you're not fooling anybody and all of this stuff. I was like, yo, nobody read over this? Like there was nobody to tell you. Like I had never seen anything that was so pointed and so personal toward one person. And that's before I looked at the words themselves and was like, nah, I didn't think that this was cool. Then I forget who it was that wrote it. I think it's the woman that wrote the piece for Anscape, but she did her own kind of a audit of sorts of what Christine Brennan had written about the WNBA this year. And I was floored. I couldn't believe it. Like I was reading through the stuff that she was writing. I was like, yo, whoa, I see why they're a little bit frustrated and tired of dealing with you and your stuff. If this is what you're doing every single time and every question that you ask somebody is in furtherance of, I want to be careful about saying an agenda because I don't know what it is that Brennan intends to do. But it is definitely feels like hagiography, right? It definitely feels like her game is creating the hero of Caitlyn Clark. And for me, that's not even that interesting a part of the story. Like one thing I find interesting having watched from this distance that I'm at, and I think is something that's easy to lose sight of with Clark. So she's from Des Moines, Iowa, and went to like the Catholic school that's in Des Moines. She went to the University of Iowa, and as far as I could tell, everybody on that team had at least one white parent. Even the black girl's name was Hannah, right? Now you come to the WNBA, you're in a new world, right? Like, anybody who knows me knows I am fascinated by the cultural exchange that comes from basketball. What is interesting to me is that this is the first time Caitlyn Clark has left home, and she didn't just leave home. She left home under this gigantic microscope and all that comes with that, but also being a, for lack of a better term, minority for the first time in your life. In a culture of basketball that you're familiar with, but in a way that's different on your own micro level. I would love somebody as talented and as, Christine Brennan ain't nobody in this game, right? Like she is a Hall of Famer in the eyes of most people. I would love to see somebody like that look at those things about Caitlyn Clark, but people seem just so excited about her very existence that this whole thing, somehow she has been too good for our own good. Forget about her own good, for our own good. Because look, I do think we could have been more honest in the beginning. It was some hateration and holleration in the dancery because that's how sports works. Right? There's hateration for Shedeur Sanders at Colorado. It's gonna be there, but we was doing a lot of lying and acting like it wasn't there. No, 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 no. They was hating. They was knocking it down for no reason. There was all of that stuff. It's just the game. The problem was people jumping in and acting like this was so particular to her and needing to put on their capes and come in and save her when the real story was, nah, she gonna jump up every time. And now by the time they came back from the Olympics, she was so cold that none of this other equivocating that people were trying to do applied anymore. Nobody could
Correct.
do it. But then we just spent the year being mad. Like it just felt like every discussion that reached a place that I get to it because I'm not an in the weeds fan of this. It just seemed like everything was about somebody being mad and like how far we got to go before it becomes a discussion of the basketball.
Exactly. And that was the problem for me, Bo, was I think the generalization is what was bothersome. It was this generalization that there's just this big gang of bullies that are just like licking their chops to hurt Caitlin Clark. Like that's ridiculous. Nobody looked at anything situationally. Nobody said like, okay, well, let me find out a little bit more about Kennedy Carter and see if she tends to make decisions like this, which we've seen her have some questionable decision making in the past. She had a great turnaround year in Chicago, but like nobody looked at any of those. They kept using every example as see, we told you. And on top of that, even when that rhetoric died down, the other thing I was uncomfortable with, Bo, is that instead of celebrating Caitlin Clark, every accomplishment she made on the basketball court immediately was weaponized to attack other women. It was like, oh, Caitlin Clark became the first rookie to ever have a triple-double. See you bitches, you'd be nothing without her. She's better. It was like, oh my God, why can't you just celebrate her accomplishments on their own? Every single thing she did became a weapon and someone became a target of it. And it was just weird to me because if you love Caitlin Clark and you appreciate her game, like so many of these women do, then that's what we should be celebrating. The idea that as much as you thought she was being attacked and bullied and all that, look how quickly she turned around. We all knew Caitlin Clark was going to be fine in the WNBA, by the way. I don't even think we all thought it would be this quickly, that she would be this impactful right away, that she would take a fever team back to the postseason for the first time since she was 14 years old. Like, I'm not sure anybody thought that would happen or saw the post-Olympic break happen, but we all believed that she would be just fine. Even the people in the beginning that were hating, the fans that were saying when she was struggling or turning the ball over, see, she's not that good. They were wrong. Just like the people that were saying that the W should have stacked the decks more in her favor because she was, the only reason people are watching TV. Both of them were wrong. And I think that's the problem, is that there's like a lot of wrong people on both sides in terms of overestimating, underestimating, and not accurately depicting what her impact is. And I love what you said about the idea that she joined a locker room composed of and comprised of people that she had never really played with before. Whenever there was a lot of criticism to Caitlin for how she was sort of handling this and whether she was speaking out enough or using her platform enough, someone came to me and told me something that I thought about, that also was a legacy basketball player that grew up in an all-white environment and then was sort of thrust into a not white environment as their basketball career progressed. And she said, she will get there with time. She has never been around these type of women. She's never been around, Black women or women from different parts of the country. Like, she's sort of existed in this bubble of women that were raised with similar backgrounds, Black, white, or other. They had similar backgrounds and socioeconomic backgrounds. And she'll get better with understanding and talking about race the more that she is exposed to people of different backgrounds. But right now, anything that she's saying is going to sound a bit performative because she doesn't actually know. Give her time. She'll be more comfortable talking about race and things like that. But you also have to understand, too, the weight of on her shoulders as well. She's the golden goose. She's got, Peyton Manning's agents. Like, she's got so many endorsements online. She's got millions and millions of dollars at play. And I think that Caitlin also doesn't want to say the wrong thing. And I'm not sure that it's one of those, Michael Jordan Republicans buy sneakers too. I don't even think it's at that level. I think it's that she doesn't want to say the wrong thing in general. She's 22 years old. Like, she is young and she's got the weight of all of this on her. And so I think giving her some grace on how she handled the situation as well is called for.
The NFL is back, which means you can turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game watching your favorite teams only on Prize Picks. You can make a Prize Picks lineup in as little as 60 seconds. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play 5. You don't even need to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what make Prize Picks the #1 fantasy sports app. So make sure you go to prizepicks.com/Bomani and use code Bomani for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/Bomani. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy.